My name is McKenna Middleton. I want to thank the conference organizers and UCLA for hosting us today. The paper I'm presenting is called The Queer Effect of Matrilineal Genealogies in Pedro Almodóvar's Todo Sobre mi Madre, or All About My Mother. Adrienne Rich's seminal 1976 text on motherhood, Of Woman Born, assesses the discrepancies between patriarchal cultural assumptions of motherhood and her own lived maternal practice. Articulating a separation between institutional motherhood and maternal experience corresponds to an expansion of the definition of the maternal figure. Therefore, the idea of a female family tree or a matrilineal genealogy must incorporate all individuals who perform maternal practice or mother work, rather than just biological mothers and their blood relatives. I refer to these individuals as the substitute mother, a figure who performs maternal care despite not giving birth to the child. This term is borrowed from Nancy Trotterow's work, Reproduction of Mothering, and she also refers to them as a small but stable number of mother surrogates. Matrilineal genealogies are not subject to the limitations of patriarchal lineages. They do not necessarily rely only on biological connections between family members, nor do they reproduce traditional Oedipal or nuclear family structures. They instead expand to include even substitute mother figures like neighbors, sisters, aunts, grandmothers, friends, and strangers. The inclusion of substitute mother figures in matrilineal genealogies points to the anti-heteronormative potential of alternative kinships formed through formal or improvised networks of women. These figures queer the limitations of the category mother, questioning the boundaries of the term by operating both within and outside of patriarchal notions of motherhood. Pedro Almodóvar's 1999 film, Todo Sobre mi Madre, All About My Mother, serves for me as a case study for investigating the matrilineal genealogies that obtain a spontaneous and improvised quality rather than reflect an Oedipal nuclear family structure. The matricentric feminism and matrifocal solidarity of the film indicates the subversive and utopian power of walking together. To queer motherhood is to challenge the expected gendered, sexual, relational, political, and/or symbolic components of motherhood. To queer something, especially the category of woman or mother, is to explore the gap left between traditional social prescriptions and a deviation from these norms. Michael Warner, for example, points specifically to the potential of familial language to either be a language of exile for queers or a resource for irony. Almodóvar's Todo Sobre mi Madre depicts both possibilities of familial language, hinging on concerns for alternative kinship configurations involving mutual maternal care from non-biological substitute mother figures. To borrow Julian Daniel Gutierrez Alvilla's terminology in regard to the film, it presents queer motherhood. Almodóvar achieves a depiction of queer motherhood by bringing characters who occupy the border spaces of feminine and maternal practice to the foreground, problematizing the taxonomy of what it means to be a woman and a mother. The transgender characters in the film, especially Lola and Agrado, highlight the ambiguous and nuanced nature of womanhood in postmodern society. However, Lola in particular also underscores the complicated category of mother through her identity as a trans woman and father to 2 children. Furthermore, the loss of Manuela's son early in the narrative, coupled with her relationship to Rosa, questions the idea of the mother without child as well as the figure of the non-biological substitute mother. Elaine Tuttle Hansen investigates the figure of the mother without child, noting that the terms mother and child are relational words, making partial, quasi-temporary identities that rely on one another for definition. Bearing this in mind, Hansen posits that a unique maternal subjectivity arises when one element of the mother-child equation is eliminated. Hansen observes the potential of this figure to explore maternal subjectivity since the story of the mother without child frees us, experimentally and provisionally, to focus on the mother, and in doing so to see her as a multifaceted and changeful subject. Todo Sobre mi Madre achieves this through the character of Manuela. Nevertheless, though Manuela obtains protagonist status throughout the narrative, she does not serve as the author of her own story. This narrative condition is reiterated by the film's title, All About My Mother, which positions Esteban, the self-proclaimed writer and demonstrated observer of life, as the author of this account. Upon Esteban's death, the maternal subjectivity of the mother can be explored in undeterred detail in a film all about his mother rather than about him. Paul Julian Smith calls attention to the film's depiction of what he calls cohabitation without limits. Smith cites the successful transplant of Esteban's heart after his death, the transmission of HIV from Lola to Rosa, the circulation of letters and photos and children between characters, as evidence that creation and procreation, cinema and motherhood, are thus impeccable masters, God-given gifts, and become self-inflicted scourges. Rosa, a nun who works with transgender sex workers like Lola and Agrado, sets another kind of cohabitation without limits in motion when she asks Manuela for help after discovering she's pregnant with Lola's child. Despite the initial hesitation from Manuela to help Rosa, both due to her own traumatic connection to Lola as the estranged father of her deceased Esteban, and her efforts to convince Rosa to seek aid from her biological mother instead, the two women begin a relationship of cohabitation without limits, uninfluenced by their status as virtual strangers. At first, Manuela resists the role of substitute mother, telling Rosa, you're asking me to be your mother and you have no right. You already have a mother, even if you don't like her. We don't choose our parents. Additionally, Manuela exemplifies a layer of confusion between familial terms that blurs the boundaries of relational categorization, introducing Rosa to others as her sister, even though they're strangers who eventually act like mother and daughter. She also describes Rosa as like a little girl, further confusing their link to one another by infantilizing the pregnant woman under her care. Manuela, the figure of the mother without child, now adopts a new identity as the substitute mother figure to Rosa. She tells Rosa one evening as they lay in bed together, displaying a deep level of intimacy that defies the few short months they have spent living together, I wish we were alone in the world with no obligations, you and your son for me alone, but you have a family, Rosa. This interaction discloses key features of Manuela's substitute maternal practice that demonstrate its unavoidable connection to the mother without child figure. On one hand, Manuela expresses a strong, intimate connection with Rosa. Her desire to be alone in the world with Rosa and her child reflect a longing to experience a maternal bond with Rosa. On the other hand, she facilitates a reconciliation with Rosa's biological mother, pushing aside her own desires for maternal bonds by recognizing the significance of a pre-existing maternal relationship between Rosa and her birth mother. Manuela understands the experience of the mother without child and works to eliminate this experience for Rosa's mother by reconciling the two women. Nevertheless, she maintains that this bond between Rosa and her biological mother should not come at the expense of Rosa's maternal care. Because of this, she tells Rosa's mother, "You're her mother, but I think Rosa is better off here." Because of this experience of cohabitation without limits between Manuela as a substitute mother and Rosa as substitute daughter, Manuela eventually takes on the role of substitute mother figure to Rosa's child, also named Esteban, after Rosa dies from HIV-related complications during childbirth. However, Manuela's ties to Rosa's son indicate an inheritance beyond the connection between the child's biological, Rosa, and substitute Manuela mothers. Rosa tells Manuela, "This child will belong to both of us," and also names her child Esteban after Manuela's dead son Esteban. That is, the mother without child figure of Manuela gains a synchronous identity of substitute mother with child, made more complicated by the interchangeability of the children's names, Esteban, and their fathers, Lola. Certain unexplained biological similarities reveal the nature of inheritance between Manuela and Rosa's child. Particularly, Rosa's Esteban displays a miraculous lack of inheritance of both his parents' HIV. Esteban's status as HIV negative suggests the almost supernatural influence of inheritance from his substitute mother figure, the identically HIV negative Manuela. Rosa's Esteban remains the source of ambiguity not only in this regard, but also in his relationship with Lola, who occupies the role of father in the sense of giving sperm to fertilize the eggs that would become both Estebans. However, Lola never meets the first Esteban and only briefly encounters the second one when Manuela introduces them. Lola lovingly tells Manuela as she holds Rosa's child, "I wish he were mine." However, the female presenting Lola does not occupy the role of mother in the same way. In fact, upon learning that the child is Lola and Rosa's, Lola lovingly tells Esteban, "You're with Daddy." When Rosa's mother later tells Manuela she doesn't like strange women kissing Esteban, Manuela informs her that woman is his father. This paradoxical phrasing both recognizes Lola's gender identity while also defining the relationship between Esteban and Lola as father-son rather than mother-son, reserving the latter distinction for herself as a substitute mother figure. Neither Esteban has a present traditional father figure, and both share Manuela as a mother figure, further queering the film's depiction of matrilineal genealogies. Almodóvar summarizes the central thesis of his film in the dedication that precedes the end credits. To Betty Davis, Gina Rowlands, Romy Schneider, to all the actresses that have played actresses, to all the women who act, to the men who act and become women, to all the women who want to be mothers, to all the people who want to be mothers, to my mother. This dedication stresses the performative nature of maternal practice. Just like the film itself, this dedication also recognizes the non-gendered character of maternal experience for las personas that wish to be mothers. It also points to the ways that maternal practice does not require biological connections, nor the presence of a cisgender female. Almodóvar expands on this idea, stating in an interview, "If anything is the feature of our century, it is precisely the breakup of the traditional family. It is now possible to create a family with different members based on different types of biological or other relationships." Okay.